In the first reading from the prophet Isaiah, there was a line that really struck me. It said, "Nations shall walk by your light, and kings by your shining radiance." That really got me to thinking about this feast of Epiphany that we are celebrating today. Epiphany, from the Greek word meaning intense appearance. Phane means appear in Greek, and epi means on top of, which is a way to intensify. So it means something has appeared, but in a very intense way. Not just getting our attention, but revealing something of enormous significance. So for the wise men, it was first the star. But it was much more than that. The point of the story is that it wasn't the star that was the real epiphany, but it was the baby. They were looking for a king, and they found an infant. That was the epiphany, the extraordinary appearance, the moment of intense manifestation. And I think this feast day is a way to signal to us that we should be attentive in a similar way that the wise men were to these moments of intense manifestations, these moments of breakthrough when something shows itself so powerfully that ultimately it speaks to us of God. I'd like to give you some examples from my own life that might show you what I mean. People have asked me the question, when did you know you were called to the priesthood? And of course, I have so many significant things that happened that I can tell you about. But when I really stop and think about it, I realized that the most significant thing that brought me to the priesthood was the wonderful priests in my life when I was growing up. They were good men who seemed happy to be doing work for the Lord. They would take us on service project trips. When I grew up, I was so blessed because I went in Catholic school from first grade to 12th grade. And we had priests and nuns throughout the school. That was back in the day. You know, that's why I have gray hair and many of you do not. But they would take us on all these trips, and they would, be with us. They would take me, I remember going out, a group of guys with father cats, and we'd go to the movies. We would go out to eat with the priest. The priest would come to my house for dinner occasionally. And then a group of us would go out back in my house and we'd play wiffle ball. The priest would come to us. There were several of them that cared about us, myself and my peers. They were spending themselves for us. And when I became attentive to this, I realized how blessed I was to be around good, holy priests. And that became a moment of intense manifestation for me about God. It made me aspire to their lives or their way of living in their vocation. And now I get to see this in the priesthood all the time as I live my own life. I remember being called to the hospital for one of my high school youth group kids who was tragically killed in a car accident. And it was on the evening of her parents' wedding anniversary. So they were out to dinner, and the police could not find them. So they called me. and asked me to go to the hospital to greet them when they could finally be found and give them the sad news about their daughter. Through our tears, in a moment of intense manifestation, I realized that God was all that really mattered at that moment. I was called to hospice house for someone very close to death. The person wanted the sacraments. It was a moment of intense manifestation when the person made peace with God through God's mercy and the anointing of the sick and the Holy Eucharist and the apostolic pardon. I do a lot of marriages, but one marriage in particular always stands out in my mind and never will forget it. There's something about this couple. The first the groom and then the bride began their vows. And they locked eye contact like I had never seen before. And the vows they were exchanging before God was all that really mattered to them, was that God was solidifying their relationship. At 3:30 in the morning, I got a call from the hospital. A young couple was there. They just found out they were in a tragic situation. They're 35 weeks in the womb. Their baby was dead. I went, and when I entered the room, we all burst into tears. We prayed together. And at that moment of intense manifestation, all that mattered was God. You know, these examples, for me, just scratch the surface of my daily life. And I have come to realize how important it is to be attentive to the moments of intense manifestations of God that happen every single day of our lives. Now, these experiences obviously are unique to me because of the priesthood, but your experiences are unique to you because of your marriages, or your being a child in a family, or because you're retired, or because you're widowed, or whatever your state in life is at this moment in time. But the real question is, are we attentive to the moments of intense manifestations of God that we are experiencing every single day of our lives? You know, the wise men in the gospel, they were attentive to a star, and they found Jesus, the infant, a moment of intense manifestation. And they prostrated themselves before him, they did him homage, and they gave themselves to him. And the fact that they changed the direction of their return trip is indicative that their lives were changed forever. It was a new way of life for them forever because of a moment of intense manifestation of God. So all of us, we all need to be wise men and women who are not, for example, looking for the quickest mass to fulfill our Sunday obligation, but rather consider it a privilege to worship the Lord as long as possible. Wise men and women don't ask if they have to go to confession annually, but rejoice in the celebrating of the sacrament frequently. Wise men and women consider it a privilege to share their faith in Jesus, especially in situations where they may be persecuted. Why? Because wisdom is not doing the minimum, but always searching for new opportunities to surrender to the love and to the will of God. Wise men and women transcend their natural inclinations to selfishness, laziness, and fears. They live supernaturally by grace through faith. The Lord wants to make each of us a wise man or a wise woman by our attention to the star in our life, Jesus Christ. As we encounter him in the moments of intense manifestation in our every single day life.